All right. So, good afternoon, good morning, good evening. This is, I'll name this segment later, GTG spits that grease, etc., etc., etc. You guys all know how this goes. Ladies and gentlemen, if the title hasn't already given me away yet, as it usually does, we're going to be talking about Darksydephil and Ethan Oliver Ralph, Smart Guys 3.0. How did it go? Now, first off, I like how Ethan was like, hey, you were the king of hate, and then when you said you were going to drop the moniker, I wanted to be the king of hate. I really wanted it. I love that. I love that. I love that. So if I can actually get that snippet edited in, or I'll have someone else do it, I'll have that put in, hopefully, because I like that. I like how Ethan acknowledged that, because Ethan, whether you guys know this or not, Ethan has always been partial to that moniker, the king of hate. He's always been partial to it. So that's why when the moment DSP dropped it, Ethan was the first one there to pick it up. So that was funny. As the show itself, I gotta tell you, it was boring as shit. It was uneventful. Let's say that. It was uneventful. It could have been funny, or it could have been fun. It could have been lively, but DSP was so desperate to try to dictate the pacing of it and what could be said and what could be done and this, that, and the third, that it just kind of made it boring. It made it shitty. It made it forgettable, to be honest with you. If it wasn't for the fact that they had 40,000 view bots or whatever the fuck that was going on there, as well as, they made what, $400-500 or whatever. Most of that came from from Ethan Ralph's supporters or supporters of the kill stream. It was, other than those two factors, it was nothing more, ladies and gentlemen, than a glorified interview. It was a glorified audition. That's all it was. That's really, legitimately, that's all it was. That's all DSP relegated it to. All those troll messages that were coming at Ethan Ralph, DSP should have read them. He should have read them. Because let's be honest, that would have encouraged more people to go ahead and send more money that way. That DSP is going to collect. What DSP don't know is that the Rage Pig is also very fluent in his Sage mode, as well as his disciples, which means charge back no jutsu is a thing. Good luck with dealing with that, DSP. So there's always that. DSP should have played ball. Outside of that, DSP spent the majority of the time just trying to dictate the show. He tried to come across incredibly informative. He tried to seem like he was engaging. He tried to do all of that, while at the same time, he was purposely letting Ethan Ralph dwindle the clock so they could talk less about wrestling, so DSP could just harvest him for more and more money. And that was very apparent. That type of enthusiasm that DSP showed for whatever the fuck that was worth. Why didn't PPP get that? He didn't mind PPP carrying the show when they were together, but he wanted to try to establish dominance with Ethan. And let's be honest, the majority of people that were there, not the phantom, 39,000 people or whatever, the people that were really there were there for Ethan, to be honest with you. They weren't there for DSP. They were there to hear what Ethan was going to say, what he was going to do, and was he going to pop off. And DSP put the kibosh on all that shit. It was alleged too that Ethan might have been inebriated. I don't know. To be honest with you, every time I see Ethan as of late, he seems like, or he sounds like he's on something. So it doesn't matter. It doesn't mean a whole lot to me. But I thought that it could have been eventful. It could have been interesting if he would have let Ethan let loose. But it's very clear that DSP is very paranoid about that. I have a video in the works, if it's not out already, but it's in the works, where I'm going to go over from when Ethan first put out the message on Twitter to get to replace PPP up until Smart Guys, or maybe just before Smart Guys. So that'll be a long video in itself. That should be pretty good. And he should have let, I get it that he was concerned about Ethan was going to drop bombs and this, that, and the third, but he should have let that fly. He should have let Ethan Ralph you should have taken the reins out of him, or reins off of him, and let the guy kind of do his thing for a minute. Ethan has a pretty decent pedigree as it pertains to his wrestling knowledge. I gotta be honest, it would be interesting to see an Ethan Ralph PPP wrestling show. To be honest, I kind of like the confrontational nature that these guys already have, the competitiveness these guys already have, as well as the animosity that's already baked in. I kind of would have liked to see that in a wrestling environment. I really would. I honestly think that could work, to be honest. Now, is it going to happen? No, probably not. But I do like that idea. I really like the idea of a PPP, or triple P as I like to call them, and Rage Pig, Ethan Ralph wrestling show. I like that idea. I really do. I really like that idea. I might actually even watch it. I like the idea enough that I might actually watch it if it was a thing. Anyway, but that's, you know, that is what that is. As it pertains to what we saw fucking last night, no, or not last night, sorry. It's been a few nights at this point. But from what we saw Thursday night, no. I see Ethan getting bored of that very, very quickly. Ethan did everything in his power to get himself over, to show, hey, you're making a mistake by dealing with anybody but me. I'm okay with you going ahead and letting these other two guys allegedly have their opportunity, their audition, whatever the fuck. But truth be told, you should be running with a winner. That's kind of what Ethan was putting out there. That's the energy that he was putting out. DSP was sitting back just collecting his shekels. You know what I mean? That's all he cared about. He saw that the money was coming in. DSP has always been someone who thinks in the short term. It is what it is. But it's also clear that he was paranoid. It was also very clear that DSP was very uncomfortable around Ethan. And you should be. You should be uncomfortable around Ethan Oliver Ralph. He's not somebody to play with. He's not someone to be fucking around and finding out with unless you're going to put him down and you're going to keep him down to make sure he stays down. If not, he will drag you to hell with him. You know what I'm saying? That's how Ethan rolls. There was a reason why he was revered as much as he was in his day. He's fallen a long way since then. But that doesn't mean that he can't be any more formidable. You know what I'm saying? It doesn't mean that he's not any more dangerous. So DSP tried to play it safe. I would be honest with you, most of the time DSP just came across as just a scared bitch. And he was just doing whatever he could not to set Ethan off. And if you're going to work around like that, sooner than later, Ethan's going to go into this, is going to eventually take the reins and run the shit himself. At the end of the day, this is about exposure, ladies and gentlemen. Ethan's already down bad as it pertains to his situation in Mexico, him not being able to come back to the United States permanently, financially, because, you know, you got the baby mamas out there that are, you know, messing around with him. Allegedly, he ain't fucked one of his mother-in-law or one of his children's grandmother. He's already messed with her, allegedly, which I'm not actually surprised, to be honest with you, that Ethan was able to get into one of his baby mother's pants. I'm not really surprised by that, to be honest, if it's true. That's alleged. I have no real evidence if that's true or not. But that's what they're saying. He has all of his own problems. He needs a fresh start. He needs a fresh breath of air. Now, obviously, you're dealing with the vortex. There is no clean air in this bitch. You know what I'm saying? This is Goutopia. This is, you know what I'm saying, the Snort Fort. This is, you know what I'm saying? It's pretty toxic over here. But it doesn't matter. It gives Ethan Ralph exposure, which is what he wants and what he needs. He'll forego everything else for now to keep his name relevant, to get his name out there, to get people to orbit around him. That's what he's looking for. He has to poach DSP's what few idiots that are in his fan base. Hell, if he has to poach his DSP's enemies, he'll do so. Because at the end of the day, it's all attention. It's all exposure. It's all publicity. That's what Ethan needs. Once he gets enough of it, the money, he knows the money will generate. All those years online has taught him that. DSP hasn't figured that shit out. Review Tech USA hasn't figured that out. Wings of Redemption and these other idiots haven't figured it out. Ethan himself has stumbled and bumped his motherfucking head a bunch of times. But he does understand that get the exposure on yourself, the money will come. And that's what Ethan's shooting for. That's what he's fighting for. So we'll see. We'll see. Now, there's allegedly some rumblings going on right now as it pertains to Ethan. I'm not tapped in on that yet. So let me see what that is. See what problem that's going on with Ethan and somebody else allegedly. I don't even know who this other person is yet. But let me see what that is, and then we'll just make that into another video. But for right now, as it pertains to this first show, I don't see it lasting very long. I see why Ethan will stay in there, and why he would even be the primary person chosen, or he'll have priority over the other two guys depending on how they do. But I don't see Ethan doing this for forever. You know what I'm saying? I don't see him doing it forever, because not the way DSP try to exert his control over the situation. It's not fun. It's not engaging. It's none of that. Ethan can throw a lot of shots down range at Kino Casino, at DSP detractors, whatever. And there's no reason why DSP shouldn't want to do that. But I do also identify and maybe even understand the fact that Ethan's a fucking pit bull. You let his ass, I mean, he's a gunty pit bull, but he's a pit bull nonetheless. If DSP loses control of that leash for a second, Ethan's gonna run fucking wild all over that bitch. You know what I'm saying? Which is where the entertainment's at. And once Ethan gets going, once he starts building his momentum and he starts talking, it's very hard to get him to stop. And like I said, I think Ethan exerted a fair amount of self-control and or respect, I guess, on this first show. If he gets brought back, those restraints, I should say, are gonna loosen. And eventually Ethan's gonna end up running that shit the way he wants to run it. Just like PPP did. Because if you're Ethan and you saw how PPP got away with what he got away with for as long as he did, why do you think you can't do that either? You know what I'm saying? It's kind of like that. When you see a pathetic, desperate man as DSP who is willing to bow down to any man who he recognizes is stronger than him, and he will allow them to do whatever they want to him, to his family, to his audience, who's to say you can't do the same? It ain't no fun if the homies don't get none. And that's exactly what's going to happen to DSP sooner than later. So then DSP is going to have to choose. Is it going to be his ego, or is it going to be his money? And DSP kind of like the money. I think DSP thinks that he can control Ethan. He can't. He cannot. I promise you he can't. Ethan will play around with you. He'll play along with you, but there isn't any controlling him. You know what I'm saying? So unless you're willing to let the dog off the leash, let him do his damage, then give him the old Yeller treatment, or fucking tase his ass, or tranquilize his ass, then what are you doing? Because it's only going to be so long that Ethan Ralph supporters are going to be like, well, I don't want to support this guy anymore, Ethan. I just want to support you. And if it's true that, and like I said, I don't know how the financial situation is going, I'm pretty confident, at least for this first showing, since it is just an audition / interview, Ethan's not going to be paid. And to be honest, you shouldn't expect it. No one should. Not for an audition. Not if you're competing up against 3 other people. That sounds kind of silly, to be honest. Now, if he actually gets the position, or even if he's a reoccurring guest, then maybe he can talk fees, an appearance fee or whatever. But for an audition / interview, it doesn't make sense for him to ask for any money out of this. Yet again, Ethan wanted exposure, and that's what he got, minus the view bots. And even with the view bots, it just brings more like, well, who the fuck is these guys here that they got 40,000 people being view botted and shit? At the end of the day, publicity is publicity, good, bad, or otherwise. That doesn't mean all publicity is good publicity, but at the end of the day, publicity is publicity, and Ethan's looking for exposure. That's what he cares about more than anything, especially right now. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for listening in. I very much appreciate it. You guys can let me know what you guys' thoughts are if you have any, to be honest. And I'll catch you guys for the next one of these, hopefully sooner than later. I'll name this segment later. GTG spits that grease. Like I said, I do have a video that will talk about Ethan Ralph throwing his name into the hat for Smart Guys leading up to this episode of Smart Guys, and then I'll eventually do an episode for Smart Guys afterwards. As well as I will eventually get to all of those episodes of Smart Guys that I've missed. I have no intention of not doing them, to be honest. It's just got a lot of things going on. I got a lot of hands in a lot of places and shit. So I'm trying to work things out. But that's the thing. But in any case, like I said, thank you guys very much for listening in, and I'll catch you guys for the next one of these. Take care of yourselves, people. Later.